This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. I've been doing a series of lessons on using the Japanese flatbed knitting machines. Lately I've been doing ribber lessons. There are just so many interesting stitches that you can make on a ribber. Here's a little gently racked sample that I made. All of these stitches need to be bound off neatly, and many of them are just not conducive to the first bind off that I showed you, where you had to transfer all the stitches to the main bed needles. The problem with many of these stitches is that if you transfer all the stitches up, you end up with 2 stitches on a needle and you can't bind them off one by one. Now this little gently racked pattern that I did has the circular cast on down here, and I'll zoom in a bit. And then up here it has this next bind off I'm going to show you. On the edge it looks like a chain, and it's a very nice, neat bind off. Works really well on all kinds of things. Here's another sample where I used the off the machine bind off. It's a loop through a loop bind off on a different needle arrangement. This was racked, and this is one ribber stitch meandering along. The rest of the stitches were main bed. Well, if I put it up on the main bed, that stitch would have had to double up on top of a main bed stitch, so it wouldn't have bound off as neatly. This was also, if I can get this to turn, this was also that same bind off. So right now what I have on the machine is a 1x1 full needle ribbing, which means all the needles are in use, and if I were to transfer the stitches up, I'd have to put 2 stitches on these main bed needles. So that is not good. Now the way this is done is similar to the other loop through a loop bind off, in that I begin with a loose last row. I knitted all of this full needle rib on tension 3, main bed and ribber, and I'm going to go ahead and loosen it up to tension 7, main bed and ribber, and knit the last row. What I need to do is change from the peach garment yarn to the purple waist yarn. So I've tied the 2 yarns together, and then I'm going to get a latch tool and bring it down below, bring this yarn down below in between the bed. Now that I have it threaded, I have it set for circular knitting just like the cast on, and I'm going to do 14 rows, which will give me 7 rows of waist yarn. See how that first row of circular knitting looks? And now the second, and I'll keep going for the 14 rows. I cut my waist yarn and I'm going to drop the knitting, but I'm going to be careful to catch it so that I don't have the problem of it unraveling. So it's off, and here's how it looks. Let me get the weights off and lay it out and show you. Here's what I have here. I have full needle rib up to here, and then I switched to circular, so I have this waist yarn that curls away from the knitting. On this end, I have the loose ends after the knitting's complete, and on this end I have the beginning of that last row, that last loose row, I should say. The first thing that I must do is figure out what the farthest stitch is on this end, and then following the needle arrangement, like for instance this was knit 1 purl 1, so I have to go across the knitting to get the purl, and then on this one, since it was knit 1 purl 1, I just keep going across and I just keep latching them through with the latch tool. It's a little bit like crocheting. Now if this was knit 3 purl 3, I would have to do 3 on one side and then I'd have to do 3 on the other side. So it would be a different order that I pick the stitches through. But I think you can see that this is quite easy, goes quickly. What I think is amazing about this method of cast off is that you can just use it on almost anything. You could use this whether or not you could also use the regular cast off. This could be a racked pattern, it could be a really fancy pattern, a really plain pattern. I'm going to go ahead and finish this, or at least get very close to the other end off camera, and then show how to finish the other end. Here I am on just the final few stitches. My next stitch to pick up is this one, and pull it through. And my next one is this one. And my last one is hiding. Get it? It's that one. Then I can kind of look and see if I got every single stitch, and I appear to have. Then I can kind of poke through the waste yarn and get this loose end. I just want to pull that loose end through at the very end. Now what I need to do is pull the waste yarn off. So I'm going to begin unraveling the waste yarn. It takes me a minute to figure out where the last row is, and it comes right off. Passive knitters will recognize this. On the passive, we use this bind off all the time for various ribbed efforts. When I got to the end here, things got a little tangled, and it's pulling through. Okay, so that's my bind off, and I'm going to put it on my lap so you can see it. And it's just full needle rib. There's nothing really special about the sample. And I'm thinking that against my dark pants that it's washing out. So let me put it over on the machine and see if it shows up better. Here's the completed cast off. I worked from this end over to this end where there was a loose end that I could pull through the last loop. Here's how that looks. Let me pull that open a little bit. This side was the circular cast on that I've been doing. This side is the bind off. You can see the bind off wiggling back and forth because, again, this loop through a loop bind off knitted the knits and purled the purls, just like a hand knitter's bind off. So that was the off the machine loop through a loop ribbing bind off.